So a massive explosion happened in Chernobyl, and we got the bad ending, in the form of the STALKER series. The STALKER series was developed by G.A.M.M.A, and it has 3 games so far, with STALKER, Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, and Call of Pripyat. You play as a STALKER, who traverses the exclusion zone in this unforgiving FPS survival immersive sim large-scale non-linear story. The long-awaited sequel, STALKER 2 Heart of Chernobyl, will finally be releasing this year, and we had the chance to try STALKER 2 for ourselves at the media preview event in Beijing. We also interviewed the developers, by the way, and there's lots of interesting details to see. So let's talk about it. But first, literally none of you are subscribed. I'm looking at you. We do a bunch of early game previews just like this one, so make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all of these upcoming games. Second, this is a STALKER game, alright? From the gunplay, sound design, exclusion zone, vault, and most importantly, atmosphere, are all faithfully returning to STALKER 2. The story will be a sequel to the original trilogy. Life in the zone hasn't changed much though. The same dangers are present in STALKER 2, where radiation covers the entire area of the disaster, called the exclusion zone, causing weird stuff to pop up like anomalies, artifact, mutants, and the average rainstorm in Southeast Asia. I think it's safe to say that this place is post-apocalyptic. Just maybe. Since this game is a sequel, it is highly advised to play the original trilogy for the best immersive experience. You can pick up all 3 games for pretty cheap, by the way, but it is not a necessity though, as STALKER 2 will be a great modern entry point to the series, as it gradually explains the essential things along with the various improvements that have been made. In their interview, one of the developers' goals was to make the game accessible to as many people as possible. In fact, the protagonist is an outsider to the zone, and the developers intended it to be this way, as if the player themselves are experiencing the zone with a sense of unfamiliarity. There will be various difficulty levels available to choose from, which means players who just want to enjoy the narrative won't feel overwhelmed, but at the same time, the hardcore, challenging, and realistic experience will still be present. You can expect the main storyline to be around 40 hours, but the completionist route can easily surpass 100 hours, not to mention the multiple endings which are determined by missions and dialogue options. The developers said it's impossible to see all endings in just one playthrough, so be prepared for multiple playthroughs. The next obvious improvement is the graphics. The graphics have been improved with 15 years of technological advancements. STALKER 2 will be on Unreal Engine 5, where modern tech such as photogrammetry, full body, and facial motion capture have been used to truly bring the STALKER series up to modern standards. The environmental design of the exclusion zone is also on another level. The art lead for level design, Dmitry was actually involved in the real exclusion zone, following the real Chernobyl disaster during his childhood. And because of that, STALKER 2 holds a special place in his heart, and it is evidently clear in the design of this world. There's around 20 regions, each of which have their own residents, architecture, anomalies, and the dev said each region could easily be its own game. In the interview, the developers also said they took many expeditions to the actual location, which is only an hour and a half away from their office. A lot of the props, buildings, textures, and so on were based on real objects that existed in the real Chernobyl exclusion zone, and they used photogrammetry to bring all of them into STALKER 2. They did these excursions with everyone, including the new members of the team, to make sure everyone was on the same page of making an authentic looking world. It also proved to be quite a big challenge, as there aren't many games of this scale that run on Unreal Engine 5, and the exclusion zone is about 64 square kilometers in size. A lot of work was also put into the sound design. The majority of the game is just silence. All you can hear is the sound of your footsteps, the clunky machinery you're carrying, and the ambient noise of this desolate area. You know, it's kind of peaceful in a way, which is quite the contrast to the combat. The combat is terrifyingly terrifying. The sound of your gun blasting away. I'm going back. The growl of the monsters you can't see, and the groan of your character taking damage. And then silence once again. Now that we're out of combat, let's take a break and talk about the gunplay, which is one of the key features in the STALKER franchise. And let's just say, it certainly ups that punchy and realistic feeling of the guns. Like heck, they modeled the entire gun, which you can take apart and customize to your liking with all the various attachments, and you can finally make your dream firearm, or an absolute abomination. As a sequel to the original games, many fans are expecting it to retain many of its original systems. Let's just say they absolutely nailed implementing these realistic and immersive aspects in STALKER 2, As a simple example, managing what you carry is very important. You can be a hoarder, like nothing stopping you, but be prepared to move really slowly. Artifacts are a signature of the Stalker series, which are basically a bunch of equipment that a Stalker can equip. Some of the tamer ones will boost health, stamina, or damage, but in certain high radiation areas, you can find more dangerous artifacts which hold more power, but at the cost of more dangerous side effects, like increasing your radiation exposure. Around these regions are anomalies that you have to watch out for. Anomalies are another signature of the Stalker series, and different anomalies exist in different regions of the exclusion zone. Some of them are evil, but some of them help you, like breaking your fall, but most of them are evil though. You can safely navigate these anomalies with your trusty bolt, which is something you can throw to find or temporarily disable these anomalies. Veteran players will know. Speaking of knowing, the whole progression of the Stalker series isn't tied to some sort of leveling system or skill tree. As intended by the developers, they believe that the progression in Stalker should not be through some level up system, but more of the player's own knowledge, almost as if they're a Stalker genuinely learning about the world around them. And we think this design philosophy really aligns with the realistic theme of the game. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room though, which is the fact that the Stalker games are technically free right now. So you see, the original games were released 15 years ago, and they were considered abandonware for a while. Because of that, the community has stepped up to furnish it with a crap ton of mods, turning it into something unrecognizable from the original, called STALKER G.A.M.M.A and STAL.K.E.R Anomaly. The structure of the story is no story. G.A.M.M.A and Anomaly basically turned the game into this open world survival sandbox. This has been one of the go-to ways to experience Stalker, and greatly contributed to Stalker's popularity and relevance, despite it being close to 15 years old now. If you really can't wait for Stalker 2, then perhaps you can try out G.A.M.M.A and Anomaly for free, though it will be a vastly different experience. Or again, you can pick up the original games for cheap. Despite our limited time with the Stalker 2 preview, we can already see that the sequel has successfully inherited the core elements of its predecessors, while making plenty of improvements that bring it up to date with modern standards. Exploring the exclusion zone has been made even more immersive, which is elevated by the thoughtful world and sound design that really captures the atmosphere of life in the exclusion zone. They retain the depth of firearm gameplay as well, with a ton of customization and realistic shooting mechanics. Story-wise, we can't say much about it, but according to the devs, there have been at least 3 hours of motion-captured cutscenes, which basically makes it a mini-movie. Overall, we think Stalker 2 is certainly a game that newcomers to the Stalker series can get into as their entry point, while veteran Stalker fans will be pleased to finally see their beloved series get a modern entry after so many years. So, will this be your entry point to Stalker? Or are you a veteran who's been playing G.A.M.M.A and Anomaly for a few thousand hours? Let us know what you think about Stalker 2, and don't forget to subscribe for future previews like this one.